Welcome to another edition of Be in Health. I'm Dr. Rachael Coleman. Today we are going to talk about children and children's health. And I'm so excited to have joining us today Dr. Yvette Casey Hunter. Dr. Yvette Casey Hunter, welcome to Be in Health.
Well, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, before we dive into children's health and more specifically around the summertime health, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for asking. I am Dr. Yvette Casey Hunter. I have been a pediatrician in the greater Cincinnati community for over 45 years.
Wow.
My original plan was to become a French interpreter for the UN.
Wait a minute, you said French interpreter?
Yes.
Wow.
So my undergraduate degree was in that. But after going in the Peace Corps in West Africa for 3 years, coming back to the States, I decided I didn't want to go with my original plan. I decided to go to medical school.
Wow.
So I had to go back and do all my pre-med studies in about 10 months, and I got accepted to 2 medical schools. Decided to go to Howard University College of Medicine in Washington, D.C. And then I went south to Houston to do my pediatrics training at Baylor. And then decided to come back to Cincinnati where they knew me.
Okay.
And I've since then practiced solo practice for 12 years, group practice, private practice for another 8 years, and about 12 years now, 13 years in public sector.
That's
dealing
awesome.
with vulnerable populations. So
that's awesome. So for many decades, and most of that time has been here in the greater Cincinnati area.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, we appreciate all that you are doing and have done for the children of greater Cincinnati. So help us to understand some of the challenges that we face, especially in the summertime with the children. They're out for school, they're enjoying their breaks, but sometimes there can be some health challenges that can come up. So what are some of those challenges and how can we prevent or avoid them?
Oh, well, thank you so much for asking. So I have to admit that I could talk forever. So I did write down a few notes so that I could be sure to make some points very clear.
Okay.
So the first thing I have to remember is the heat advisory right now, because we've been having a run of really hot temperatures. And in the summer months, it's really important to make sure that the kids keep hydrated. So they might say, I'm not thirsty, but make them drink anyway. Water's still probably the best thing for them to have, but they can also have, dilute juices or Gatorade or something of that nature. But it's really important, or popsicles, that people have made at home, just to keep them getting enough fluids in to keep them from getting heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Those you really want to prevent. The other thing with that good old Mr. Sun up there, you want to prevent sunburns. So even though people think of varying skin tones, that they might not be able to get sunburn, oh yes, they can. So having a sunscreen of some kind, protection on the skin, would be important. And then always take the kids with you when you're doing your errands. Don't leave them in the car. Even with the windows cracked, it can still get too hot for them, and they can get really ill that way. So if you're out and about with them, take them in with you so that they're not out in the heat by themselves.
That's good. Because each year we hear of kids being left in the car and unfortunate outcomes related to that. So that's good to take the kids with you.
Yeah, so you'd want to do that. Plus the fact you never know if they're sitting in a car and there's a car accident and it hits their parked car, they get hurt when it could have been prevented if they'd been inside the building with you. So even if you're just running in for a hot second to buy something from the store, just take them in there with you so that they're safe.
Excellent tip. Excellent
Thank
tip.
you. So with that being said, we always have to think about water safety as well. So wherever there's water around, you have to watch the kids carefully. You don't want them to get in a pool, whether it's a concrete pool or one of those inflatable, portable pools that people put in their yards for kids to play in. You don't want to leave them unattended in those, because every year there's so many near drownings. And near drowning means the child almost drowned, but they were saved. But there's so many drownings that actually were not able to be saved. You want to prevent them. So The best way is to watch them when they're around water. Don't leave them unattended. That also means around bath time, don't leave them in the bathtub by themselves because they could slip while playing and knock themselves
Right.
out. So we want to make sure that they stay safe around water. If you can get them taught swimming lessons, that's perfect. But if you can't do the swimming lessons, you at least want to make sure that you monitor them to make sure that they don't get out where there's a pool
That's good.
unattended.
That's very good. And I think sometimes if the child has been around water for several times, sometimes there's a tendency to get a little lax. Well, they know what they're doing, but it's very important, like you said,
Yes.
To keep an eye on the children around water so that there's no need to go to the emergency room or call emergency services. Plus, I think it's also very important that people also know how to provide CPR, to children if necessary. So, excellent point.
And that is an excellent point about the CPR. And there's certain number of organizations all over the country who do provide that. The American Heart Association has a training. Red Cross has a training. A lot of hospitals will do trainings. So that's an excellent point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, in summertime, kids get out on bicycles, don't they? Bicycles, tricycles. And it's important for them to have a bike helmet on because most time when we think about a child having an accident on a bike, we think about them just tumbling over and no biggie. But if they tumble over and hit their head, that could be very serious. So, and you don't just go to the store and say, yeah, that looks like that about fits you. Let me try that. Yeah, that fit right. It has to be fitted by a professional so that it protects the head where it would be most vulnerable. And there's plenty of organizations out there that will provide bike helmets for free or at a very reduced cost so that they can protect their kids.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So now sometimes there's resistance from the children because they will say, well, I know how to do it. I can be safe, so sometimes having to, be persistent, in them wearing that helmet, despite their feelings that they can handle it okay and that they know how to ride the bike okay. I think is also a very important. But then also children grow, so from year to year, if they're still wearing the helmet from 2 years ago, it may be
It may be too small.
and time to get a new helmet, and so we can be safe.
And one thing about the helmets these days, they're not like helmets where when I was a kid. They are all kind of snazzy and very cool colors and very attractive so that kids actually want to wear them.
That's good.
Which is really great, yes.
Awesome.
Yes, because we think that they'll be okay, but you never know.
Right.
And
it's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. Now, you can't talk about bicycles without cars because car safety is very important. So children need to be in the most appropriate size car seat for their age and their weight. And from infancy on up to age 5, they need to be in the one that's best suited for them. Everybody needs to be in a seatbelt. I don't care whether you're going 50 feet to the mailbox and back home. You need to have a seatbelt on because you never know when somebody else's car may hit you or you may lose control of your car and ram something, and you want to prevent serious conditions and injuries from occurring.
That's right.
Yes. So
and what about children who want to ride in the front seat and they're maybe 5 years old?
No way, Jose. They're still too short and too small. And if you train them to be in the back seat from when they first start out, they will always know they're going to be in the back seat. And you can play like, Mom and Dad are just chauffeuring you around and you're back there. Aren't you cool back there? You can make it nice. A lot of parents now, as I've looked with my own son and his children, my grandchildren, they had all kinds of things on the back of the front seat that the kids could look at. They have these little artificial mirrors so that the kids could be making all kinds of faces and looking at themselves. Or they had a little, a little design thing or a little book up there, And a lot of the car seats now, they'll put little trinkets on them so that they make them real festive, so the kid pretends like they're driving along with mom or dad also. So,
That's
you know,
awesome.
anything you can do to make it fun for them
Make
to
it
get
fun.
in, that's going to make all the difference in the world with
That's
them
good.
keeping in the seat. Mm-hmm.
So what if they are insistent about moving about the back seat outside of their restraints? Any tips for that to help them stay put? Some of the kids nowadays are a little clever and they come out of their restraints. So how can we help them stay put?
Well, we just tell them, we can't go until you're back in your seat. And you just stop the car, turn it off and say, get in your seat again, or we can't go. And then after you do that consistently, it's the consistency of it. When you do it consistently, then they will know, I have to be in this seat. And the only other thing with regards to the summer, you want to make sure that the seat is not hot. Because sometimes the sun comes in through the window and it really heats up that leather or plastic, whatever they're going to sit on. So when you go to put them in the chair, you want to touch it first and make sure that it is not hot.
That's good.
And then the child will be more comfortable getting in it. If it is kind of warm, you can always have a cool rag and just wipe it off, or just wipe it off a few times and then put the child in the car seat.
Cool, that's good. Because we want to avoid burns too. That's good.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing about this doesn't apply to just the summertime, but kids will get into things. So I used to say there's 3 types of children. One child, you could put anything down. They'll look and say, that's not my stuff, and they'll keep on going. There are other kids that they'll look at everything and they'll get into it. But the majority of kids, if you put stuff up out of the way, you put the medications up out of the way, you put cleaning supplies up out of the way, things that might be harmful to children if they tried to eat it or drink it, if you put them up out of the way, they don't see them. Now, for the kids, the parents of those lucky few, you wake up one morning and they've got the stepladder out, the keys to the lockup drawer, and the combination to the lock, and they're going for glory because they know it's up there. Those kids, you can't ever turn your back on them. But otherwise, if you keep things out of the way, you'll keep them safe. But just in case they do get a hold of something they weren't supposed to, it's always great to have the number for poison control handy. Because when you call poison control, and I've had to do that a number of times for patients as well as for my own kids, you call them, you tell them exactly what it was that they took, exactly, approximately how many pills or how much liquid they took, whatever, and then they can look it up and tell you based on what brand it is and so forth, whether it's toxic or not. And then don't just make them throw up on your own. Consult with poison control first, because some things are worse if you bring it back up afterwards. But if they do say, yes, we want to induce vomiting, then you'd want to have some syrup of Ipecac on hand so that you could make them throw up and bring that out of their system. But only if poison control tells you it's okay to do that.
That's why it's very important to have that number. That's good. And where can they get the syrup of Ipecac?
That you can buy over the counter at the drugstore. You just tell the pharmacist, I need syrup of Ipecac. They don't give you some huge bottle like that. They give you a little bitty bottle because you don't need to take a whole lot of it to get the effect.
And just as a precaution, just to have on hand. That's
just to have on hand and have it up so nobody goes looking at what would this be?
Right.
They find out the hard way what it does.
Right. Right. So that's good to keep them safe and. But of course, keeping them from that access is important. But like you mentioned, children can be a little industrious and are dead set on getting into things. So it's always good to be safe than sorry. And then also, Sometimes it's a coin. Some kids,
Mm-hmm.
everything goes in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
There's those shiny coins, and so
Mm-hmm.
being very intentional about keeping coins out of reach,
Mm-hmm.
even safety pins.
Yes.
We've seen
Mm-hmm.
X-rays of children who have swallowed open safety pins, and of course, that's a
Yeah.
trip to the emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
So let's keep the kids safe.
Absolutely. And the other thing too is not to tell them that medicine is candy,
Mm.
because then they'd be inclined to go get it. And one other thing while you were talking, I just thought about. So a lot of times we have things in our hand and we drop it, and we look down, we say, "Oh, I got them all up," or "I got them all up." But it's best to get down on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
belly on the floor, and then look, because then you will see what those little bitty eyes are going to see.
That's
And
right.
then you can make sure you got all the nails up when you drop the nails. You can make sure you got all the pills up when you drop the pills, in order to keep them safe. Because
That's good.
sometimes we think we've gotten it all up,
But we didn't
but
see
we
what
didn't see
rolled
what
under the couch, but the child did.
the child
So,
did exactly.
and they're going to explore a little bit. So that's an excellent point.
Hmm. Well, I mentioned the syrup of Ipecac, but even more important than that is to have a safety home kit.
That's good.
And people can put it together in anything. They can put it in a shoebox, they can put it in a zipper bag, whatever. But you always want to have certain things on hand, because you're always going to need those. So you're always going to need Band-Aids.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to need some kind of fever reducing medicine in case they get a fever. Triple antibiotic ointment is good to prevent infections if they get a cut, or they're scratching at a insect bite that keeps kind of pussing up a little bit, or hydrocortisone in case they got into the poison ivy you didn't know was
Mm-hmm.
there. So, and then an ace wrap, in case you need to bind something up in case they fell on it, and then some kind of ice or cooling wrap, just in case they fall and they bump themselves. Now, one thing we used to do when my kids were little, a long time ago, was we took plastic gloves, like the rubber gloves, and we would put varying amounts of water in them, and then tie them up and put them in the freezer,
Mm.
because there are parts of the body that are very hard to get with a flat ice pack, like over the nose, whereas the fingers on a glove that's got ice in it will fit very well over the nose
Oh,
or
that's
over
good.
an eye. And then afterwards you can just put it back in the freezer and let it refreeze or throw it away. And it's always handy because they're always falling and bumping their lips or hitting their head or something like that.
That's
So
very clever. That's
it
awesome.
is.
Hopefully, you all will try that. Just have it on hand. That's excellent. And then that kit, it sounds like it could be easily portable if a person's going on,
Yes.
on a family's going on a car trip. Just grab the kit and go. You don't have to think about it. It's already put
Yes.
together and ready to go.
And if you have it in a mobile one, then you only need a few of everything. But the number of times that families go on a vacation and so and so got a runny nose.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to go buy a big bottle of medicine.
Right.
Whereas if you had just little bitty bottles like they now sell in the stores, then you don't need a whole lot. But you've got everything under control.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. And so those are some excellent points for helping the kids to be safe during the summertime and actually
Mm-hmm.
all year long. But we're full into summer and soon they're going to be going back to school.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some things that the kids need and parents need to be mindful of when going back to school to prepare
Well,
for that?
I'm glad you asked about that, because this is the time of the year when we really start cranking into that. And I have to say, because of the amount of time I've been a pediatrician, plus the 3 years of training before I started practicing, I've seen childhood diseases eliminated, prevented, due to the vaccinations that we have in this country. There are other countries that don't have access to them, and their kids still come down with those diseases and suffer the consequences of prolonged illness or disability or death.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to prevent everything that we possibly can prevent by getting them vaccinated, by getting their immunizations. and it's not going to cause any learning problems in them. It's not going to create any other issues, but it does help us to decrease the amount of this each individual childhood illness or serious infection. It helps us to keep it down to a minimum so that we can hope to eliminate them. When I was a child, we had to take the smallpox vaccine. And my father always put it on us in the back of the arm so that nobody would see the scar that it would leave. But everybody got the smallpox vaccine. So we eliminated smallpox in the United States. So then there were some people who had adverse effects from the vaccine. But because we eliminated the disease, nobody for the past 40 plus years, 50, 60 years, has had to take that vaccination because we eliminated the carrier state in this country. Similarly, more recently with the polio vaccine, we had, my age, I had first the Salk vaccine, which was a shot. And then when I was in grade school, the Sabin oral vaccine came out. And I remember going to an old school, getting it on a Sunday in a sugar cube. And then I remember going to get it in my junior high school. And one of the girls was sitting there and she didn't go to get it. And I said, "Oh, honey, didn't you go get the polio vaccine? You don't want to get polio." And she said, "Oh, Dr. Sabin was a neighbor of ours, and all of the children in the neighborhood were part of the testing population for the vaccine's development."
Wow.
I said, "Okay, I would hate to think of my classmate coming down with a disease like polio,
Right.
where people had either died or had permanent disabilities and all kinds of trouble. But because everybody got immunized, we have very rare cases of polio in this country. And we were actually able to go back from the oral vaccine to the less potent injectable vaccine because we eliminated polio in this country. So people who were having reactions to the one vaccine, we no longer had to run that risk because we could use something that was safer because we eliminated it.
That's good.
But if we keep not vaccinating our kids and protecting them, then we'll continue to have measles in this country. We'll continue to have bacterial infections that can cause meningitis or death or in bone infections, and all of those are preventable now. And two vaccines never said anything about preventing ear infections. But with the Haemophilus influenza type B vaccine, the Hib, and the pneumococcal, I have not had anybody to have chronic ear infections requiring surgical treatment for about the past 20 years.
Wow.
20, 25
That's
years
impressive.
while those vaccines have been out. And I just said, I can't remember when I had somebody to have PE tubes. So it really does make a difference. Now, I have to say, I had one of these moments when I said, now, wait a minute, if I immunize these kids, and if the immunity does not last lifelong, because everybody's living longer now, how would I feel if they came down with the illness as an adult? Because it'd be much more serious.
Right.
And I started thinking about it, kind of mulling over in my head. And finally, I said, you know what? I don't have to worry about it because I know who's going to take care of them. You know who's going to take care of them?
Who's going to take care of them?
The employers. Because the employers do not want their employees to come down with childhood illnesses and be deathly ill or off of work. And as validation of that insight that I had, I was doing a well-child checkup on a patient one day, and the parent says to me, "Hey, doc, my employer is offering me these different vaccines. Should I take them?" And I said, absolutely yes, because otherwise they were either vaccines that they would not have gotten as children, or they were vaccines that they may have run out of their immunity. And it makes all the difference in the world. She says, okay, I'll go back and get them. So
So with the kids getting prepared for school, perhaps some have missed a certain number of vaccines. Is there a maximum number that they can get to get caught up, to date?
There's no maximum in a day, but humanely, I try not to do more than 8 in one day, but we can usually get them done in less than that, if we've kept up. And now some of them are in combinations, so we don't have to do as many sticks to get them done. But we want to get them caught up because you don't want to have something that could have been prevented.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and anything else that we can do to prepare them for back to school?
Yes. Be aware of your child and how they learn best. Some children learn best by hearing, some learn best by seeing, some learn best by touching things. And when you communicate with the school how your child learns best, that helps them be successful. Now, one of the things that we've tried with children, very young children, under the age of 3, is to detect whether they have hearing disabilities, hearing impairment, speech impairment, and to try to, or cognitive, meaning developmental thinking delays, and try to focus on how those may be manifest, and then try to address them early before they go to school. Because once they get in school, they've already lost valuable ground. So actually, we're quite proud in the state of Ohio. We have a new app for parents called Sparkle. And the parents can go on there. They can do the little developmental test, screening test for their child. It will then tell them what the grade is, what the score is, whether their child's on point or delayed. And then that information is shared with state agencies that address intervening to help improve delays. And they will contact the parent to tell them what's available to help them.
Okay.
So,
is there a certain age range for this tool?
well, it can be used from infancy on up.
Okay.
So when my colleague told me about this, I said, well, let me see if this really works. So I created a phony child and I put in some deficits. The next thing I know, the state agency is calling me saying, we want to get your child enrolled and get this child the services that she needs. So I said, oops, my bad. I said, I'm a pediatrician. I wanted to test it out. This child does not exist, but now I know it works.
Wow,
and
that's
I'm
awesome.
really, really pleased with that. So we want to
awesome.
know in childhood, the sooner we learn about something that's not working right, the sooner we can address it. And that's why the well child checkups are so critical, especially the back to school critical ones, because that way we can make sure they're growing well. Because if children are ill and you don't know they're really ill, they won't grow well. Either they won't gain weight well, or they won't grow tall well. And so, or they're growing well and then they stop growing well. And that's how we determine if there's something we need to look for to improve that child's health and well-being.
That's good. That's good. So we want all of you to have your own healthcare provider and get the healthcare checks and that you need. And if you haven't already scheduled a well child check, you want to do that. Well, thank you, Dr. Casey Hunter, for stopping by and sharing this wonderful information. I'm sure it will have a huge impact to our audience. I know you want more, but that's all for now. And until next time, be in health.